Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera and a very good morning. On behalf of the university, I would like to welcome all of you to our great hall, DTC. And we, unfortunately, Dato' Vice Chancellor cannot make it because he has to be with the Lembaga LPU, our board of directors. Currently, they are having meeting in Bilik Lembaga, and I will replace him to chair this session. So, once again, I would like to welcome all of you to this seminar, which will be presented by Professor Edward Tiekink, titled Research that will generate huge citations. As you already know from the portal that our Dato' Vice Chancellor shown us last few days, Prof. Edward Tiekink is the number one, the leading scientist that have about more than 1,000 publications with citation more than nearly 12,000, and his age index is 47. Our nearest is only 25, so he's double what we current staff has. And his citation per paper is about 9.88, nearly 10. So you know where he stands. And before inviting Edward to present his deliberation, I would like to give some background of Prof. Tiekink. He graduated from University of Melbourne in 1985. He did his PhD there. Then he moved to University of Adelaide as crystallographer, and also member of the academic staff there. Then he moved on to US, the University of Texas in San Antonio, and where he established a crystallography group as well, focusing on crystal engineering, both organic and inorganic systems. And we are very proud to have him in University of Malaya. He's currently serving in our chemistry department. Actually, we are in the same field, organometallics. I really like him to be with us, but unfortunately, I can't be with him all the time, as I have to do some of the administrative job. And he had been here early this year, and he will be here for more, longer time, as he has given the task by Dato' VC to spearhead some of the research area in chemistry, and also guiding us, the campus community, to publish more in higher rated journals. Without further ado, shall we welcome Professor Prof. Tiekink, please.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for spending a bit of your Friday morning with me here. My lecture is entitled Research that will generate huge citations, in quotation marks. This is a task given to me by our Dato' Vice Chancellor. I remember about 2 months ago, my friend and colleague, Ek Weng, from the Department of Chemistry said, Edward, the VC wants to give you a talk on citations. And immediately from that moment, I've started feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And that feeling of unease, lack of comfort, accompanies me this morning. I've never given a presentation like this, and I'm not 100% sure I'm happy to talk about a topic like this which is in a sense designed to rank one academic against another academic. When the boss speaks, you listen. The Vice-Chancellor says, this is what you're going to do. And I think it's incumbent of me to give to you my thoughts on this issue. My thoughts are offered as a stranger, someone who's been made extremely welcome here in the University of Malaya, and I'm very, very happy about that, particularly in the Department of Chemistry led by Prof. Zana, but also have friends and colleagues that we've made since arriving here in November. But my experience is very, very different to all of you here. And I've had considerable advantages in my professional life that has allowed me to be nominated to give this presentation. And my thoughts are offered as someone who's just joined the academic community here, and I, along with most other people, if not all other people, wish to contribute to the growth and well-being of the University of Malaya. And so with that sort of introduction, what I'd like to do is actually introduce myself again, but with a few pretty pictures, and then set into context how I have arrived where I am today, and then critically self-evaluate any achievements I've made and see how we can relate those achievements to us here and now at the University of Malaya. And I actually came up with 7 conclusions. And when I was putting all this together yesterday, I realised that a lot of these are easily achievable by my colleagues here at the University of Malaya. And I think you may also be surprised at some of the conclusions. And then, as I said, I'm a little bit uncomfortable talking about this sort of topic. I'm going to finish up by throwing the challenge back to the university administration. So many times, the university administration says, you go and do this, you go and do that, but they don't provide the infrastructure. So with that sort of introduction, let me repeat the title. Research that will generate huge citations, courtesy of our Vice-Chancellor, presented by Edward Tiekink. And if I push that, something will happen. If I push this one. Now, I learned something this morning. Where are you? You have to switch it on. You switch it on, and it works. Yeah. See? So I've really lost the punchline there, haven't I? So we do this. There it goes. Edward Tiekink, who? I'm going to try, in a sense, establish my credentials. So, we were talking about an impending birth in my family a few minutes ago. I was created in the Netherlands. So, where does this name Tiekink come from? Well, it actually comes from the eastern part of the Netherlands. And there's a town here. Nothing's working for me. There it is. Enschede, eastern part of the Netherlands. And the name, Tiek, means son of something. As I'll go through the lecture, you may come up with different ideas. Son of something else, etc. The name of the name Tiekink comes from the Netherlands and means son of something. Substitute anything you like. Created in the Netherlands, delivered here in Melbourne, my home state of Victoria. And I went to the University of Melbourne, as we were told a little bit before, and did my undergraduate and graduate work there in chemistry at the University of Melbourne. And again, as I was told, as you were informed a few moments ago, went over to the University of Adelaide, where I worked for about 16 years. And in that 16 years, my feet got more and more itchy. I had to travel. I missed a postdoc because of family commitments. And so after that, I went over to Singapore. See? It works. I spent 3.5 years. I spent a 3.5 year contract at the National University of Singapore. And that's a university we're talking a little bit about this morning. And after Singapore, could not resist the temptation to go to the United States of America. And I ended up in San Antonio, where they were establishing a crystallography, or wanted to establish a crystallography lab, and huge buildings and everything like that. And the icon of the university represents my attitude. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I spent a little bit of time in Brazil. And after my 3 or 4 months in Brazil, went and got a fresh air coming back where I feel I belong, here in Asia. The slides are a little bit slow because the pictures are very large. So I've spent some time at the National University of Singapore, then I think I'll spend another 4 months here at Nanyang before happily coming over here to the University of Malaya. So what do? It's coming. We're just a little bit slow this morning. I think that's a very large image. What I'd like to do is just briefly mention some of my research interests, what I do, and then we're going to relate everything back to my philosophy on publication. I do think we're a little bit stuck here. There we are. Research. Push button again. There it is. Chemistry. I know there are a few chemists in the audience, but there will be a majority of non-chemists. Presumably most people are from engineering faculties as well as science. But I like to make molecules. And then we make these sort of molecules for different sort of purposes. And this is an example of a gold molecule that we have evaluated for anti-arthritic activity. These things also have anti-cancer activity. So we make molecules and evaluate their biological activity. What else? Really doesn't want to cooperate this morning. Is there anyone up there who can push a button for us? Or is that too much to ask? It's travelling. Doesn't want to arrive. There it is. We do biological activity. Click. So we'll just have to put a little bit more padding in, I think. And then underlying all of our research in biological studies, crystallographic studies, and my initial fundamental interest in scientific or chemistry research was to see how the crystalline manifold, the host environment of a crystal, of a molecule within a crystal, is influenced by crystal packing effects. So we do calculations as well, and we do something else. We make more molecules, thiolate molecules, and then we go and deliberately destroy these thiolate molecules. This is an example of a bismuth thiolate. And we destroy these and make nanocrystals. You'll see an image of a series of nanocrystals in a moment that are pure, beautifully pure bismuth sulfide nanocrystals. And you start recognising a few terms here. Biochemistry working, a chemist working in biological areas, a chemist working in nano areas. Very important areas to work in terms of funding and publication. And here is the image. Doesn't want to work. I hesitate to push the button again, but there's our image. And so as a bit of an introduction, again, we're talking about a chemist who sees that in order to get high impact work, you do need to work in the areas that are in vogue at the moment. And anything to do with biology obviously is very, very important, especially human medicine and nanotechnology, anything to do with nanotechnology. If you can tailor your research into those two key areas, you're already taking front running. And so we'll try again. Next slide. He's up there. Oh, there you are. Thank you. Yeah, next, there it is. Don't go away. Aren't they beautiful crystals? Those are great. This is just these bismuth sulfide crystals growing normal to a silicon surface. Next slide, thanks. Beautiful. And then this image is really, again, just to show what we're all about. The details don't matter. We make little molecules. Next slide. And see how these molecules aggregate in the solid state. And in this case, these molecules aggregate via hydrogen bonding to form lovely supramolecular chains. I think the slide must be just too big. I'm sorry about that. I'll go faster in a few moments. And we can do wonderful tricks for these sort of molecules. Inherently, this molecule is not very interesting, but the way it associates in the solid state to form the chain is a little bit interesting. And then we'll see in the image after that, we can get these chains and we can interweave these chains into a chord type of arrangement. So please bear with me while this goes on. This idea of making molecules and understanding how these molecules associate in the solid state is called crystal engineering. So I've mentioned biology, I've mentioned nanotechnology, and now crystal engineering. They are three very, very hot areas here in contemporary chemistry. That doesn't mean there are not other interesting areas. But these are areas that attract a lot of interest. And I guess if you're looking for an area to work into, or get into, you can look into the journals and see where the major publishing houses, American Chemical Society, Royal Society of Chemistry, what journals are they introducing? These societies will not introduce new journals unless they are hot areas. And there's Crystal Engineering Communication, CRISENGCOM, RSC, Crystal Growth and Design, ACS, American Chemical Society. Next slide, please. So here's our chains, and here's just a representation of how these molecules interpenetrate to form a a cord. Let's see how we go now. Here we are. So, where am I coming from? I've come from traditional, well-established Australian universities where research is paramount. Teaching, very, very important. But research output has always been associated with these universities for 60 or 70 years. And Melbourne, of course, is one of the leading universities in the world. And Adelaide is in the group 8 in Australia, etc. And then I've gone and visited what I would term emerging universities. I've mentioned NUS, UTSA in America, and of course here UM. Now there's something special about NUS and UM. We all should be aware that, I have an image coming up, so we just have to wait a moment, that we have the same parents. We have the same parents. And I think this is where our Vice-Chancellor gets a little bit upset when he's seen how we are, as a university, UM, compares to where NUS perceives itself. We have the same parents, we all have evolved differently, but in terms of research, I think most people here would agree that NUS perhaps is a little bit more successful than we are. And the Vice-Chancellor is asking why. What happened? Okay, my research here, this is all part of my apology. This is all part of my background to say, look, I've had advantages. I've worked in the area of crystallography. When I started in crystallography, it was really, really hard to get a crystal structure, let alone get this structure published. Now people like Prof. Sekwang, etc., can get structures done within a day, published within a few days, etc. Now, I don't know why this is moving and it's starting to annoy me. That's okay. Crystallographers, traditionally, we work together with people. When I started in the game, a crystallographer did crystallography, someone would make the compound, work together, and publish the results concurrently. And that meant that crystallographers have a huge advantage. Working with many people, traditionally have a lot of papers. And so you see we'll see some quite large numbers later, but a lot of that arises through collaboration. Another thing I'll mention about crystallographers, we can make a mistake, or the chemist can make a mistake, and we still can get paper. For example, you can get one compound in one crystalline environment, and the chemist goes and makes the same compound in a different way, but in a different crystalline environment, we can get a paper. And especially now, that concept of polymorphism, different crystalline environments, is really hot. And so even mistakes can generate papers for crystallographers. Enormous amount of data now available through the advent of new instrumentations. We've all heard perhaps of CCD, these diffractometers that allow you to collect data in a matter of hours instead of weeks or months. And so crystallographers often say, well, the chemist is not going to write this up in a paper. Or the chemist may not be interested in writing a paper with this particular result because he or she has better things to do with his or her or his time. And so we publish papers that may be 1 or 2 pages long. And I call these archival papers. I have a lot of arguments with my colleagues and friends. I love publishing in Acta Crystallographica E. I used to publish a lot in the other sister journal, if you like, Zed's Crist. Again, 1 or 2 pages. It's a great way of clearing the stocks, clearing the backlog of unpublished work. I hate having unpublished work. And you will see a summary of my philosophy in a moment. But we can publish these papers. People, as I say, experts we have here at UM and elsewhere, we can publish these papers very, very quickly. They're very short, fully refereed, They're in IC, ISI and Scopus, etc. But there we are. So what is my philosophy? I think this is the last personal slide. All research that is properly conducted is good research. If the research is being conducted professionally, up to standards, it's good. It may not have a huge impact, but it's good. Second point. This is what I got from the University of Melbourne, University of Adelaide. Research is not done until it is refereed. It has to be published. People used to say, oh, I've got 800 structures. No, you don't. You have 0 structures until they have been independently verified. You need to have everything published. And that's philosophy pertains through today. I hate having unpublished work. We sit there and whatever, publish. Also learned, it's maybe a bias, maybe an arrogance of the universities I've been associated in the first half of my career, what I call the first half, the Australian part of my career, only published in society journals. Royal Society of Chemistry, American Chemical Society, International Union of Crystallography, because they are really interested in developing the discipline. Elsevier, Wiley, they are interested in earning money. I think the society journals are also interested in earning money nowadays, but that was sort of a philosophy. So we would not naturally be inclined to go to non-society journals. More personal, publishing is fun. I love it. I get a kick out of these ACTA E papers. I know that's an issue, and I'm going to keep revisiting that, perhaps from a more negative perspective in a few moments, but ACTA E is an issue that is discussed around the university. Publishing for me is fun. It's part of my lifestyle. I started off with using the word uncomfortable. To me, the answer to the question posed by the Vice-Chancellor is very succinctly summarised in this statement here. How do you get high citations, write papers that people need to read, that people need to quote? Here's your answer. That's naughty now. You're not allowed to do that. You have to go back. There we are. And that's really, I think, is the answer to the question. And this is where now we'll do a self-appraisal of my work. Because I've seen emails, the VC says, oh, go publish in Nature. Go publish in Science. I don't know how many people here who have published in these journals. I haven't. And with all honesty, I probably never will. Okay? To be honest, I don't even consider publishing in the so-called top-tier chemistry journals. They don't interest me. I'm much more interested to be refereed by my peers, people who actually understand the topic. So, yes, I do publish in high-impact journals for crystallography, but they are my peers, not chemists, etc. To publish a paper in Nature, the rewards are great. I'm going to try. But I don't think I'm going to succeed. So why am I here? Why am I standing here talking to my colleagues here about high-impact papers? So this is where we're going to do an appraisal of my publications. Let's see how I face up. How come I've got all these citations, etc. I think you're going to be a little bit surprised, as I was, with the conclusions I come up with. All right. Now you're going to see why I repeated where I've been in my various stages of my academic career. This is from the Web of Science yesterday. A number of published items in each year. We're starting in 91 and we're going into 2010. Well, let's start with 2010. What have I done this year? I can't read this. We're up to about 70 papers. I came here, and I'm very, very happy to come here because I was asked, hey, come and write some papers. And I've been focusing on writing them ACTA E papers. So we go back again. So we've got lots of papers here, and from last year also wrote a lot of ACTA E papers. And then we see that we have a bit of a lower number here. This is UTSA when I took on this administration position. 2005 was a transition year from NUS to America, and then before that, these were NUS years. Big clean-up from Adelaide days, getting rid of all these unpublished structures in Acta E, for example, and then you have these sort of 40, 50 papers per year in Adelaide. And so that comes to a total, as we were told before, 1,180 publications in all. Not talking about numbers of publications, we're talking about citations. How many of these papers have been cited? I think I have about 250 plus papers that have never been cited. And you can imagine all of these papers here in 2010, none of those are going to be cited because they've just appeared this year, for example. So now we're going to talk about number of citations. This is going to lead to conclusion number 1, which is to calm colleagues here, but also alert the administration that they need to be a little bit realistic. So I don't know why we're not going to the next slide. Here it is, citations per year. Very, very important slide, I submit. Okay, so again, we're going from 91, I think just plots 20 years or something. 1991, we've got about 200 citations on the papers that were published previously. Then every year there seems to be a bit of an increment, occasional dip, but we're going up and up and up. In order to get all the number of citations, and I think I got what we were told is 11,000 citations, it takes time. We can't all of a sudden have 100 citations next year, or 1,000, or 10,000. It's going to take time. This cumulative number, which now I push of 11,000 plus, is exactly what I said, a cumulative number. There it is, 11,000 citations. Every year you're getting citations, and you're going to get more and more citations as you get more and more papers. It takes a long time to get, I think that's about 1,000. And about 1,000 citations last year. This year, about 400. It takes time, built on previous years. And so if you're a young staff member starting out, teaching load, administration, new family, etc., you can't expect to have huge citations. University has to remember that. Conclusion number 1. Conclusion number 1, and this is going to be repeated in different guises throughout this morning's presentation, is the importance of time. And this is really directed more to the administration, but faculty have to remember that too. All right. Tiekink Publications, version 2. Right? Thank you. No, sir, I can do this colour. Yeah, there we are. There's the citation, number of papers. Average citation per paper, 9.84. That's a meaningless number to me, except that, rounding up, always good to round up in these cases, isn't it? We get every paper on average has been cited 10 times. How important is that? I don't know. We were sent an email last week, weren't we? PDF about our citations at the moment at compared to regional universities. And I'm very grateful for that because I wouldn't know where to get these numbers. University of Tokyo is ranked number 1 around our region. And that's a number comparable. These numbers are about comparable. We've got a little bit lower. NUS lower. I'm just going to put that in there. NUS is lower than Tiekink. And I put this asterisk because these numbers are based on the last 5 years. Okay, this is over 20 years. This is based on over the last 5 years. So I guess that's a nice number, which I suppose I should be proud of. Let's look at these archival journals. These are the Acta Crystallographica E and Zeitschriften für Crystallography, New Crystal Structures. And you can see UM's giving me the luxury to have a bit of fun, write up all these little papers. But we have a steady publication record, low numbers indicating higher numbers of real papers, or so-called real papers. Oops. High activity here as I publish in structures from when I came from NUS, publishing Adelaide structures, a bit of a dip when we're concentrating on other things, etc. Not as smooth as some of the other curves. What about citations? 412 of those. Citations. We're getting the same sort of trend. Nice to see. With time. Time always helps. We get an increasing number of citations, but this maximum is about 70. It's still very, very low numbers. I don't know what's happened. It's not me. I'm going to talk about self-citations, but I seem to have a lot of citations this year, and they're not mine. Anyway. So, the average citation, 1.19. We had 9.84 overall, 1.19. That's telling us something about how much impact my ACTA E papers have. This number is probably too low because it's unlikely that the structures of the papers I published last year and this year would have been cited. But that's still a very, very low number. And that's borne out by the next little trick. The next little trick, regular articles. These are full papers. And you can see, well, lots and lots of papers, lots and lots of collaborations. I was an academic who was expected to do crystallography with colleagues in departments, and obviously lots and lots of papers. And as I've left Adelaide and went to NUS, I focused much more on my own work, on my own interests, etc. And so we have about a steady 20 or so good quality papers per year. 768 of those, and citations, forgetting about this because that's 2010, we see a steady increase, and the citation index goes right up. And perhaps that's telling us that effort put into ACTA E papers really is an indulgence. It's not going to really help your average citations if you can write full papers, etc. And so the conclusion number 2 then is the importance of choosing the journal. Obviously, as my original hypothesis suggests, publish in higher impact journals, you're going to get more readership, you're going to get more citations. Right. H-index. We had a brief word about H-index. All papers, we were told the number. The archival papers, the H-index is 7, which is not too bad actually. Some of these ACTA E papers are important. And so what I'd like to do now is to focus on the 47 papers that give this H-index. Can we get any useful information from that self-evaluation? So here we go. We're going to look at paper number 1. And it's a review. It's a review paper. It's published in Applied Organometallic Chemistry, and some of us, I see some colleagues here, may be aware of this. This is where I describe the known literature of a series of organotin compounds. Organotin chemistry has traditionally been very important in Malaysia. I heard on the news yesterday they're talking about opening up 2 mines again because of the price of tin. So there may be a resurgence in organotin chemistry. I can't stress this enough. Review papers are marvellous. They're marvellous for you and for citations. Everyone's going to win. I generally write 1 or 2 review papers per year, actually usually more. It gets you in tune with the literature. It takes a lot of time. There's that word again, time. But it keeps you in tune with the literature. When, certainly in Australia, but also in NUS, when I had PhD students, Chapter 1 has to be a review, and it has to be internationally competitive. Why not publish it? For a PhD candidate, Chapter 1 should be published, from my perspective. And we've done it in all but one case. You become an expert if you write a review. It's going to be in a journal, people are going to look at it. And they're going to cite it. Because that word, time, the 4-letter word, time, people don't have time to sit there. In Adelaide, we used to go over to the library for a morning, 3 or 4 hours, and browse through journals. No one does that anymore. I don't think they do. I don't think we would be allowed to. And so you take shortcuts. You go to a review that's been published in the last few years and see what's happening, make a little summary, and there's your introduction. If you can write reviews, it's a great way of getting recognition. high citations, and this is really important. Everyone says publish in Nature or publish in Coordination Chemistry Reviews or something like that, high impact factors or what have you. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. Choose your audience. This review I wrote went into, this is about 20 years ago, I must add. Where are we? This review went into applied organometallic chemistry. At the moment, the impact factor is 1.270. I checked that up on the web yesterday. That's not a very high impact factor. Anyone working in organotin chemistry must look at applied organometallic chemistry. If they're looking at the journal, they're going to find your review, and therefore they're going to cite it. So you don't have to go into the top journals. Go for it. But it's not necessarily the case. Target your audience. Okay. Reviews are really important. There's a total of 5 reviews in my list of 47. Conclusion. Importance of review papers. Okay, caveat. That went very quickly, that slide. Caveat. Be careful. You can get caught. We've edited 4 books. These don't appear in the Web of Science. I'm sure UM would like to have books, but we're not going to get any credit for them. You're not going to get credit for book chapters. They're not included in the Web of Science. So do go to a journal. All right. Now, so this is now, what was it? Journal choice. This listing of papers in terms of citations from 2 to 7, excluding this review paper which went into a non-traditional, a non-chemistry journal, and written when I was at NUS. These are Journal of Organometallic Chemistry. Details don't matter. These are low-impact journals. Australian Journal of Chemistry. Huge citations. They're old papers. This is the test of time. You may not necessarily write a paper that's going to have huge impact. I'll contradict myself soon. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can write a really good paper for a journal that may not necessarily have a high impact factor, but a paper that will be read and cited. And so these numbers here, number of citations, 123 for ranked journal number 2, 1989, long time ago. On average, every year it's cited 5.6 times. 20 times 5.6, 123. Etc., etc., etc. Conclusions. You're accumulating your citations. These are non-tier 1 journals. I don't know what your tier ranking here. Whatever your tier ranking, however good it is, however bad it is, these are non-tier 1. And there's our revised conclusion, number 2, a strategic journal choice. You don't have to go for the high-impact journal that your colleagues aren't going to read. Go for the journal that your colleagues are going to read. They'll see it and they'll cite it. The other point here was this idea of collaboration. A lot of these papers were done when I was in Adelaide, just starting out in Adelaide, as a crystallographer, new academic. I didn't have research students, etc., etc., etc. You collaborate. And a lot of these papers haven't read since they were written, because they're not necessarily in my field, but they've been cited by other people. Collaboration, the positive aspect of collaboration, the sum of research effort is better than the individual parts. Very strongly believe in that. We, as a community, I know we've got lots of MOUs, exploit it. Is there someone else with similar interests that you can combine your efforts, combine instrumentation, etc. We have exchange student schemes. So two-edge, and then also internal collaboration. I prefer internal collaboration because you can go knock on the door, where's the result? And vice versa, of course. The administrators have to understand it's a two-edged sword. The net result might be nicer papers, better work, better student supervision, etc., etc., etc. But we have to be aware that such a collaboration, when it comes out to handing out rewards, promotions, tenure, etc., not dominated by or subsumed by the senior partner, etc. So, strategic collaboration, conclusion number 4. Paper number 8. I'm not going through all 47, don't worry. Actually, I think this is about the last one I'm going through. Now, this is when I went to NUS, and NUS said, no Actor E. I didn't know that until I was there about 3 years. They said, no Actor E. You only have to write papers in high-impact journals. This is a really, really important paper, because I knew nothing about nanotechnology now. I knew even less then when I was in NUS. But I read the literature. That's not true. I scan the titles, I read the abstracts to see if there's something that makes sense, something I can apply my own research interests to. This paper, in Chemistry of Materials, the American Chemical Society, cited about 10 times every year, showing the importance of publishing in high-impact journals. This is that picture that we waited half an hour for to come up. Arose because I browsed the literature. I browsed the literature outside of crystallography. I'm interested in crystallography. I can read lots of crystallography, but I do appreciate that's not the be or and end all. Read outside your discipline and you get ideas. I saw this paper in Chemistry of Materials. Oh, we made these compounds. We destroyed these compounds. We made nanoparticles. I said, we've got these compounds lying on the shelf. Collaborate with someone and we get this paper. Don't be afraid to venture out your field. And that's much easier to do if you collaborate. Another way is routinely go through journals like Nature. These are the trendsetters. We may not necessarily publish there, but the new emerging areas are going to come and be reported in proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States, Nature, Science, etc. Make it a habit to browse through these. They send email alerts, etc. And you might see something. Oh, that's interesting. Get in there quickly. You're going to get high-impact papers. This is the most important take-home message, if there are any today. Keep abreast of the literature. Keep reading the literature. Keep reading the literature. All right, politics. Most of us are scientists. We want to do science. We like to do our teaching, but we want to do science. You have to be political. One thing I learned about politics in America, am I allowed to, any Americans have to be careful. They all tell you how good they are. And quite often, that doesn't match reality. But that's the world we live in. If you sit back, you're going to be stepped over. You do have to put yourself forward. And certainly in my background, and I know from my colleagues in chemistry, a lot of you were formerly, did your PhDs in England, perhaps Australia. We're scientists. We want to play science. We don't want to play politics. But that's not the way the world is nowadays. You have to put yourself forward. What have I written? You have to be political. You have to make yourself known. You have to project yourself. That means attend conferences, perhaps organise conferences. One way of getting your name known is to get involved. You don't have to give lectures, but you can network, shake hands, meet people. Poster sessions are wonderful. And all the good scientists attend poster sessions. The big names all attend poster sessions because that's how they keep abreast of what's going on. This is a bit strange. I'll put this in, perhaps more in jest than anything else. Send reprints. You write a paper, send the PDF of the paper to people that you've cited in that paper. They probably do what I would do, delete, but you never know. And then send the paper to people that may be interested. You never know. But it's sort of networking, isn't it? Email networking, getting to know people. I've done that. I don't often do it. I remember sending papers to the Gold Review, for example. I've sent that to papers in this region, not Malaysia. And then you'll see part of your text in a paper 2 years later without citation. So they have read it, they just don't acknowledge it. Name recognition. I'm not suggesting everyone change their name to Tiekink, but no one in this room knows a Tiekink. Maybe not anyone wants to know a Tiekink, but it is an unusual name, and so it stands out. But Maybe a group of names, a sequence of names, if you have a collaboration. Oh, that's the TPA group. Importance of networking. You have to put yourself forward. I noticed yesterday, and this is a true story. I'm not really interested in citations and H-indexes, but I ran my first search about 6 o'clock last night. I've been getting a friend to do this for me. They are interested. And I noticed there are 42 million articles in the Web of Science. 42 million. If I've got the zeros in the right place. No one's going to know all 42 million or a small percentage of those. So put yourself forward. I really think that, if a person is too lazy to go into the Web of Science or sci-fi and to look for papers, really they're not going to appreciate you sending an article. But you never know. You just never know. What else? Miscellaneous. Let's take this away from me for a moment, although we'll revisit me in a moment. Manipulating the system. This is for BC. Manipulating the system. Acta Crystallographica, an archival journal. The chemists will know the name GM Sheldrick and the Shellex program. The journal publishes about 3,000 papers per year. Most of those papers will include a citation to George Sheldrick. And the journal says, if you're going to cite George Sheldrick, you're going to cite one of our articles. And so, since that article appeared in January 2008, this article has 6,458 citations as of 6 o'clock last night. Now that's called manipulating the system, I think. How important are these numbers? That's going to be the next conclusion. How important are these numbers? How do you deal with multi-author papers? There's some papers in Nature with 200 plus authors. How do you give credit to each of those authors? I've seen Acta Christ papers, which are now limited to 5 authors, unless you can put in a justification. I've seen Acta Christ papers with 20 authors. How reliable, we've got to slow this down now, how reliable are these search engines? Now I can't see it, and when I was doing this slide, I knew you wouldn't be able to see it, but this is a paper, Supramolecular Association, to do with antimony papers. And this is from the Web of Science, 1 citation. And everybody says the Web of Science is wonderful. 1 citation, push button. Then you go to Scopus, same paper, 27 citations. Now I'm missing out. And that's traditional. Web of Science is not very reliable for this particular journal for whatever reasons. The next paper, up here, with 2 citations in Scopus, has about 40 citations in Web of Science. And so we can take the average, can't we? We're scientists. We shouldn't be so liberal. So how reliable are these search engines? I think I've got more numbers, so I'm going to stand close here. Here's another one. What is that? Oh, yeah, this is coming back to me. This is one of our papers, and I think this is about one of the best papers I've ever written. And the nicest referees reports in a high impact factor journal. Really, really nice chemistry. Really nice chemistry, if I may say so. Okay, and that number says something I can't see, about 20 or 30 citations. But this is work done in Singapore, we did about 80 crystal structures, 80 separate results, and we wrote 3 really, really nice papers for inorganic chemistry and this crystallographic journal. And that left about 50 unpublished structures, which were not going to make a story. They were odd. And so we put them in Acta Christ. So we put them in Acta Christ and cite this wonderful paper. Now we're talking about abuse of the system. I did this almost as a dare. But this paper's already been cited 30 times. Average citation per year is 10. But these are self-citations. Okay, ignore it. Ignore self-cited papers. But then you're punishing an author who publishes. So it is a vexed issue, isn't it? But I put this slide in to get the focus back on me. Let's focus on me. And highlight potential abuses of these engines, the unreliability of the engines, ascribing equal weight to multi-author papers, and the first point, which I can't remember. What's this? Yeah, this is the self-citation. Yeah, the conclusion from those 4 issues I just mentioned, again for the administration, how valuable are these metrics? How valuable, how important, how reliable are these metrics for assessing merit of scientific publication? University input. So a lot of this has been directed to fellow academics, and I think the next 3 slides really are directed more to those who are here to encourage us achieve university goals. Only talking about this morning with a colleague in Brazil. The internet is a wonderful thing. If it doesn't do so already, the university needs to provide an editorial system for all of us, I think, including myself. English was not the first language. If you're going to publish nowadays, it's going to be in English. We aren't, well, maybe I'm lucky because I was educated in Australia, maybe I'm unlucky because I was educated in Australia, but it'd be really nice if we write a paper, and if needed, not necessarily, but if needed, we can give it to someone expert in English, American English, English, who can fix that paper and within a day or 2 return that for you for final editing and submission. I'm an editor on for several journals, and now we have basically the policy, if you can't understand the paper, it will be rejected. I refuse to edit papers in English now. What I mean, correct the English and what have you. Its onus is on the authors. And so that's something that we need to use. A bit of controversy. Universal adoption of English. Herbert Schmidbauer, he'll be a name familiar to the chemists. I think when I was in Adelaide, so whenever that was, in the 80s or something, late 80s, he said the universal scientific language is broken English. He's retired now. But I remember that. I don't remember much from his seminar, but he's right. NUS in 1990, when they merged with Nanyang, said, we're going to do this in English. It's going to be painful, it's going to hurt, it's going to be time-consuming, but you have to think forward. This trend to English being the language is not going to change very quickly. University input. The university has to appreciate it takes time to publish good research. It takes time to come up with the concepts, the work, sometimes the money, in collaboration, coordination, etc. This year I've had 2 nice papers in the top-ranked crystallographic journal. The first one was started as an honours project in 2002. So it took 8 years to get this paper out. Another one was started probably in 2003. It took 8 years to get this all together. Yes, it went into a high-impact journal, but it only got into a high-impact journal because it was a thorough study. We did everything that had to be done to make a nice story to attract the referees to say publish rather than reject. It takes time. I added a qualifier here. Really, really important to me. Uninterrupted time. Research isn't like sort of doing the dishes or other washing mundane tasks. You can't turn on, I'm going to do research for half an hour, then I'm going to teach, then I'm going to a meeting, then another meeting, then another meeting, I don't like meetings, and then I'm going to do research. It cannot be done. It has to be uninterrupted time. It really needs to be uninterrupted time. I think from the response from the audience, you know what I mean. No one's going to argue with me. I'm lucky enough to be here. Someone's paying me to write all these ACDE papers. I'm putting these papers in Expert. Otherwise, my boss, immediate boss, Prof. Sana, says, what are you doing? Why do I have to enter the title twice? Why do I have to enter page numbers twice? A trivial example, but it does take time. It gets worse. These are suggestions for, I don't want to get the pink slip. In America, when they want to sack you, you get a pink slip, I'm told. University must continue to provide research equipment, and we were talking about that before, in centres for general access. Competent people in charge, general access. Library needs to be improved. Okay, I'm going to say, and I've got it written down somewhere later, read the literature. You can't read the literature if you don't have access to it. Too slow. Computing, too slow. Email, too slow. Fix it, please. Now people go and say, oh, cannot. A lot of people sort of have that automatic response. Now, I struggled for 24 hours on this word, because we would usually say sister institutions, etc. And I wanted to be politically correct for a change. Sibling, NUS did it. 1980, they started. They said, well, we're going to speak English. We're going to be a top-class university. What do we need? Library, computing, equipment, etc., etc. They can do it. We can do a much better job. There has to be a research ethos in the university. And again, faculty need time. Maybe departments. In Adelaide, we used to do that. Every year, every faculty member gave a seminar. It actually builds bridges. Are you doing that? Well, I'm interested in this. Collaboration. Nice paper. Research ethos. Last slide. That's great. I'll open up to discussion in a moment. I said this was conclusion number 6. Know the literature. There's no escaping. I said before, there's 42 million articles out there if I interpreted the Web of Science correctly. In science, not science and social science. You need to know the literature. Every day you need to know what's going on. And then read the important papers that pertain to your interests. High citations do not necessarily require high impact factor papers. I haven't dwelt on that so much. It helps. The H-index that I have, a lot of those papers were written in the last 5 years, last 6 years. It helps. They don't necessarily be like that. Review papers are good. Networking is important. Collaboration is, I think, a wonderful thing. And the university need to help academics. I think on those, hopefully, positive notes, I'll conclude this formal part of the presentation. We have another formal part of the presentation. I think we're going to open for questions now. This is where you got a chance to grill me, is that right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Tiekink, for very enlightening presentations, whereby we can see how he managed to publish so many papers where involve politics. And politically, it's not what we meant, what we used to do, but he has political way of doing things, and how he publishes these papers through collaborations, sending the reprints to the colleagues, which is, I think, is very enlightening. And I think I'll just raise one, just what he wrote in the summary. Key thing, we must know what we are doing. We must know the literature. We keep on reading what is going on. Right? For instance, in the sciences area, you read science, nature, and so forth. And also, one line that he put up there, high citations do not necessarily require high impact papers, although it helps. But this is very important to us. And also, to get high impact, I think it's better that we write some reviews. Although it's literature survey, but literature reviews whereby everybody reads these articles and will definitely be cited. And also, on my part and the university part, we support your proposals. And I think there are, of course, a lot of questions. We open the session to Q&A. Yes, I would like to invite the audience to ask Prof. Tiekink. No question? Yes, please. Can you use the mic, please? Is the mic there? Yeah, from medical faculty. Yeah.
I'll make a big faux pas and disagree with you. I think people communicate orally very well in English. We all seem to understand. We can get on. I understood the question, the comments. Writing is a different thing. Writing is hugely different. And I really am very, very sincere. This morning I was talking to my friend Julio, who was helping, his wife in fact helped me prepare these slides. They're writing a paper. They send the paper to America, to some company who edits the paper, who will edit the paper in American English and send it back. I wonder if it's possible to have a university resource or grow the university resource to provide a similar sort of service. That people do exist who can do that. They don't need to know anything about science, but they can read, correct the paper in terms of English, give it back to you, but quickly. If you've written a paper, you want to send it, don't you? Okay, and we're all impatient. But if you can have a 1 or 2 day turnover, I think that'd be a really useful unit. It'd be a really useful unit. Because as I say, and that's what we were talking about this morning, but as an editor of several journals, now we reject it. Cannot read the paper, cannot understand the abstract, basically. That's it. That's it for the paper. And that's got to be frustrating for you. It's also frustrating for the journals, etc. But we don't have time.
Just to let you know, I think we have already established one, you call it USP, our editor, not to say editorial, helping our lecturers to write in English. I think currently he's being headed by Prof. Sarina. So she's heading this unit whereby those lecturers who are not able to put things in proper order in English, her unit will help this one. And of course we are short of people good in English, but anyhow, if we can't cope it, we pass to outside people to handle this thing. We facilitate this thing. Yeah.
I just mentioned, I got a review back of one of our masterpieces, and one of the comments of the referee said, there are too many grammatical errors of one of my papers. It happens to all of us. And I do feed my papers to other people to read, but in that case I did not.
Yes, any more questions from the floor? No question? All okay? Okay, Prof. Nohanu.
Thank you, Prof. I enjoyed the presentation very much. About the review articles giving many citations, I think that's quite common in many fields. But in my field, I notice normally review articles are written by renowned researchers, names that they recognize, immediately refer to the article, thinking about status in the field. How do you advise on publishing literature review produced on PhD students? So in your case, how did you do it? Did you polish up the paper and put your name first, or the student publishes? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. It's a very crucial comment because I'm quite passionate about this. I spent some time in America, University of Texas, etc. And I said, go for lunch and what have you. What are you doing? I'm writing a review. And they stood back. How can you? How can you write a review? Only the leaders in the field, I have to be careful what I say now, only the leaders of the field should be writing reviews. And I said, nonsense. You've got to be joking. So I said, I spent a lot of time at the University of Adelaide, and some people will know the name Michael Bruce, organometallic chemist. He used to write lots of reviews. I said to Michael, what are you writing all these reviews about? What's the deal? He said, well, I'm an organometallic chemist. I would like to get into carbene chemistry or something. How do you get to know something about carbene chemistry? You read the literature. You read the literature, summarize it. Then you're an expert. You become an expert because you know the literature. You summarize the state of the art of the literature. Yes, Michael Bruce is a renowned chemist, etc. But we're all budding renowned chemists or physicists, scientists of some persuasion. Certainly when in chemistry, and I did say, I'm a chemist or crystallographer in fact, in chemistry it is traditional for students to write papers with their advisor or supervisor. The order in which you put names depends on what country, etc. I prefer alphabetical order. Yes, there will be significant editing. Depending on the quality of the student, you may end up rewriting the review for the student. But at least the student's made an effort. But that's maybe chemistry specific, discipline specific. But it's the same with all papers. I know in America many papers are actually written by students. In my case, virtually 0 papers have been written by students. Any papers involving students have basically come from chapters of PhD, which have been significantly edited, or I've just written it. But I think writing papers is part of the educational effort and takes a lot of time of faculty.
Yes, it does.
I think I've addressed your queries. I wouldn't be shy. Why is someone else an expert and you're not? I don't understand that.
Okay, yes.
You're an expert.
Next question. Chagogan.
What's your view on collaboration, especially in terms of whether it should be a top-down or bottom-up effort? If there is no, should it be coordinated by the university and sort of monitor? Is there a suggestion for how can this be done?
Another excellent question. I think it has to be person to person. Person to person. We might be the greatest friends, but you don't know what I wish to do with this other person, etc. Person to person. But embrace the framework. If you have a memorandum of understanding with the University of Melbourne, that may be a good place to start looking for a collaborator. So you've got the infrastructure put in place already, and that's, if you've got a memorandum of study and of understanding, it means a bit of money should be available, etc. But person to person. It's scientists working with scientists. We agree, we can work together. Forced marriages won't work in this case. I think I've answered your question.
Yeah, that's true. I think whatever collaboration is, the key thing is the person to person, because the university will agree on in general on the MOU, whatever, but normally we would name a person from both sides. They are the one who would do the deliverables. Okay, any more questions from the audience? Okay, if I don't think any more. So shall we give a round of applause to Prof. Tiekink for a very excellent lecture? Okay, thanks, Prof.